All right, welcome once again to part two of artificial scarcity and gatekeeping, or gatekeepers. So this will be part two. The last time I focused mostly on the artificial scarcity. So tonight I will be picking up from the gatekeeping aspect of it. And I've also I've also linked put the link of the website from where all this information is coming from. So it'll be in the description of the video. So if you do need to reference where the information is or where you can find the information, it'll be linked in the description of the video. So there you can go and find the link for all the information that's been provided here tonight or this evening on this video. We will get just a minute into the reading of the information. We are just getting started. Also, don't forget to comment and like the video. Comment based on the information that's been provided or the topic or the thumbnail. Comments relating to the topic or the information that's been provided. Also, don't forget to like the video as you come in. If you're watching this on live or on replay, go ahead and like the video if you do like the content that's been provided. That'll be much appreciated. All right, now we will get started. The subtopic of the main topic that we will be continuing on tonight is gatekeeping. And so, beyond this topic, there is a lot of subtopics that we're going to briefly touch on. So, this bringing this information to you guys is so you have an understanding of what is it that you are living amongst or you're living with, because you are living within a world in which you are busy throughout your everyday life, whether it's going to work or school or being otherwise occupied. And so therefore majority of people don't really have or take the time out or prioritize gathering new information, especially if it's things that they're not used to or things that they haven't been taught And so, one of the better things to always do is if you don't understand or know something, it's always better to get the information, and so that will put you in a better position to make informed decision based on the activities and the proclivities that you are trying to embark on within your life. All right, so the subtopic will be gatekeeping behavior, causes, consequences, strategies for overcoming it. And also, it's not mentioned here, but I will also include this is basically an overall understanding of the entirety of what it is that gatekeeping encompasses. And obviously, there are different levels to what gatekeeping is or gatekeepers are, and we will give information that is available to the general public. All right, let's get right into it. From exclusive social circles to online communities, gatekeeping behavior has become an insidious force that stifles diversity, creativity, and personal growth. And it really does. Not just in your adult life as an adult, but even as a kid when you're growing up, these are things that you don't really take into consideration because your mind is elsewhere. You're rather much more innocent, so you are doing other things. You're thinking about other things. However, we can see how in our society this plays a big part in the way your life is structured and the way your life goes based on the kind of schooling, the friends that you have, the families that you have. It plays a part and it comes into play whether you notice it or not. And here on Wigan Official, what I like to do is to bring some sort of acknowledgement at least to knowledge that is readily available or information that is readily available, because even though it may be classified as knowledge, it for no for now at the initial point it is just information, at least until you understand and apply it. All right, so we're gonna reread over that first paragraph because I think that is a very enlightening paragraph. So we're gonna reread and start from there. From exclusive social circles to online communities, gatekeeping behavior has become an insidious force that stifles diversity, creativity, and personal growth. So whenever you hear this kind of information, just you can stop to think, even if even if it's something that you weren't thinking about on a daily basis. I'm pretty sure you can stop to think of something where you can really think back on to say, so that's really what is happening or what was happening, right? All right, moving on. It's a phenomenon that lurks in the shadows of our social interactions, often unnoticed but profoundly impactful. Whether you've experienced it firsthand or witnessed its effect on others, gatekeeping behavior is a pervasive issue that deserves our attention and understanding. As you can see, this is a very insightful information available publicly to everyone that is willing to go look for it and just to read and get a proper understanding of what is being presented to you or what is available to you overall. All right, now let's move into the other paragraph. Imagine a world where everyone feels welcome, where ideas flow freely, and where personal growth knows no bound. Now, contrast that with the reality we often face, a reality where invisible barriers and unspoken rules dictate who belongs and who doesn't. Now that is a very insightful paragraph right there. There is a little bit more to be read, but let me just stop there just to give some acknowledgement to just to that. And I'll even reread it once again before I kind of give thoughts on it. Imagine a world where everyone feels welcome, where ideas flow freely, and where personal growth knows no bound. So that is on the first side of understanding the idea and the old concept of it. Now, on the flip side, so now contrast that with the reality we often face, a reality where invisible barriers and unspoken rules dictate who belongs and who doesn't. This is the presence of gatekeeping behavior, and it's time we shed light on this problematic practice. Once again, this is information available to the general public. The link is in the video description for everyone that wants to read and look into this sort of information. All right, so now we will get into what exactly is gatekeeping behavior. At its core, gatekeeping behavior refers to the act of controlling or limiting access to a community information or resource. It's like having a bouncer at the door of an exclusive club, but instead of checking IDs, there's judging whether you're worthy based on arbitrary criteria. This behavior can manifest in various ways, from subtle microaggressions to blatant exclusions. So even within your everyday life, if you stop to think about things like this, you will come up with points in your life where you can reference this information to it. This is rather very much out and about in our society today. Now, here, moving on to the next paragraph. Gatekeeping isn't limited to any particular sphere of life. It's rears its ugly head in social circles, professional settings, online communities, and even in cultural and subcultural groups. It's the music snob who scoffs at your taste in pop, the veteran employee who withholds crucial information based on newcomers, or the online forum moderator who deletes posts that don't align with their personal views. All right, and here we have a nice good chart going, but I'm going to continue and dive into the information. All right, so this is a side note that is presented here on the site. The prevalence of gatekeeping behavior in our society is alarming. It's not just a minor annoyance, it's a significant barrier to personal and collective growth. That tends to happen a lot. That's the reason why there is divisions and subdivision within any society that you go, because it is based on one set of individuals who wants more for themselves and less for others. So you will find this in just about any society that you go. All right, let's continue. So, by understanding and addressing this issue, we can create more inclusive, diverse, and vibrant communities that benefit everyone. And so, one of the things that you have to understand is that there is not really a lack of anything that any individual human being desires or need, because the earth produces it. So, if you look in contrast and comparison from one country to the other, you can see how that country operates is based on the priority of what the leaders of that community or country may want. In some countries, you may see better infrastructures, better communities, and they all have just about the same thing, but then you'll understand that it's simply based on the priorities. All right, moving on to the next subtopic, the many faces of gatekeeping. Once again, the link to this information is available in the video description, so you can also go and reference all this information for yourself if you would like to read or go into any of this information, or if you would like to share this information as well. I put the link in the video description so you can go and find it. Now let's continue. The many faces of gatekeeping. Gatekeeping behavior wears many masks, adapting to different contexts and situations. Now, let's get them at some of the common forms. Exclusionary practices. Now, that's the first one. Exclusionary practices in social groups. Ever felt like you didn't belong in a group because you didn't meet some unspoken criteria? Now, that's a question that is being asked on this here website, and that is obviously a good question, whether you're an adult or you're a growing adult, or even if you're a young, even if you're a younger person. I'm pretty sure you've experienced this in one way or the other, whether you're being accepted or not into some particular social settings, social groups, or even into some schooling or some type of work environment. One way or the other, we've all experienced this, and so that is a good question to ask. Now, that's gatekeeping in action. It could be as simple as using inside jokes to make newcomers feel left out, or as complex as maintaining strict hierarchies within friend groups. All right, the next subtopic, gatekeeping in professional settings. So I briefly just mentioned that as well, but here it comes up once again, gatekeeping in professional settings. In the workplace, gatekeeping can be particularly damaging. It might manifest as senior employees hoarding knowledge, managers favoring certain team members for important projects, or hiring practices that prioritize cultural fit over diversity and skills. This is something that's not unfamiliar to a lot of us. We've experienced this, we've seen this. And so this is good that you have websites like this that give the general information, so just about anyone can go here and read about these things, just to get a better understanding of the world and the environment that you're living in. So once again, the link is in the video description if you would like to go and find the information that's currently being read here. All right, moving on to the next one. Gatekeeping in online communities. The internet, once hailed as a great equalizer, has become a breeding ground for gatekeeping behavior. From exclusionary behavior in gaming communities to toxic fandoms that attack casual fans online, gatekeeping can be vicious and far-reaching. Even from a viewership perspective, this is something that you'll be able to see. Even just going online, you can see all these things being taking place. So good on this website for actually bringing and providing the information publicly for everyone. All right. Moving on to the next one, cultural and subcultural gatekeeping. This form of gatekeeping often revolves around authenticity and purity. It's the punk rocker who sneers at posers, the foodie who dismisses anyone who enjoys mainstream cuisine, or the language purist who mocks non-native speakers for their accent. Yeah, this we've also seen every day, whether it's just a prank someone doing online or just a friend group or family or whoever it is that whether they're doing it in fun or it's just a prank, we've all seen it in our daily lives online and on television. All right, moving on to the next one. What what it continues to say is that these examples barely scratch the surface of how gatekeeping behavior manifests in our daily lives. It's a chameleon like phenomenon, adapting to different contexts and often hiding behind the seemingly innocuous attitudes and behaviors. All right, let's get into the next subtopic of the psychology behind the gates. To truly understand gatekeeping behavior, we need to delve into the psychological factors that drive it. It's easy to dismiss gatekeepers as simply mean spirited or elitist, but the reality is often more complex and nuanced. And that is the reason for the information being provided is to get a better understanding of why and what, because oftentimes, in general, most people not having a better understanding or further knowledge into these things will right off the bat assume or go with what the general consensus is saying, rather than searching or go looking for themselves or even asking to get a better understanding of what it is that they are assuming about. So the information being provided here is a really good thing for those that want to look into things or go searching for themselves. All right, moving on. All right, fear of losing status or identity is a powerful motivator for gatekeeping behavior. When people feel like their special knowledge or position is threatened, they may react by trying to exclude others. It's like a child who doesn't want to share their favorite toy. They fear that sharing will somehow diminish their own enjoyment or status. Some may say it's rather an infantile or immature thing, but we are going to read further into this. The whole idea is to get a better understanding. Insecurity and low self esteem and often lurk beneath the surface of gatekeeping behavior. Paradoxically, those who engage in gatekeeping may be struggling with their own feelings of inadequacy. We've seen that very often and a lot. By excluding others or setting impossibly high standards, they create an illusion of superiority that temporarily boosts their self esteem. Another reason why it's important to always take the time out to rather look into things like these and get a better understanding, because oftentimes the general or the overall consensus might not be the right or the full understanding of what is it that's being discussed or assumed. So as an individual, there's one thing that if you do nothing else, you should always reference back to getting a full understanding of things, especially when it comes to being accountable for your own actions and the way you think. And so, within all this information, it comes back to you being accountable and being a responsible individual, a responsible human being. So, whenever an information or idea is being presented to you, it is your responsibility to be accountable for the way you think and for your actions. So, in going to get a better understanding by reading something or searching the internet or the interwebs, as some would say, it is your responsibility as an individual human being to go seek further information so you won't have to or you can't point the finger so as to say you did not know because the information is readily and openly available to everyone. All right, now moving on to the next paragraph. The need for control and power is another driving force behind gatekeeping. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, gatekeeping can provide a sense of control over one's environment. It's a way of saying, I may not be able to control much, but I can control who belongs in this group. We've seen that a lot. And uh, as an individual, you need to make sure that whatever it is that you are coming into, especially within today's society and environment, you need to have a clear understanding of what is it that you're dealing with or getting into, so you can make proper and informed decision. And once again, the information that's been provided here on this particular video, the link for the website is provided in the video description, so you can find all the information there. As you can see, this information is free and is provided to the general public. And I must say that so you get an understanding that if I can go in search and research to find this sort of information, if I can do it, then so can you. All right, moving on. The need for control and power is another driving force behind gatekeeping. In a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable, gatekeeping can provide a sense of control over one's environment. It's a way of saying, I just read that, but I'll read it again. I may not be able to control much, but I can control who belongs in this group. Now, let's go through the other one. Bias, cognitive being bias, very cognitive biases and prejudice also play a significant role in gatekeeping behavior. We all have unconscious biases that influence our perception and decision. These biases, I don't know why I'm saying that the word like that, bias, biases. All right, let's continue. These biases can lead us to favor people who are familiar to us and exclude those who are different, often without realizing we're doing it. So that's one of the reasons why it's important, and that's why I often tend to bring back the accountability and the responsibility back to each individual person, because simply going by the norm or of what everyone else is doing may oftentimes lead you in the wrong direction, and without you being accountable for yourself and being responsible, because that's what tends to happen to many of people today. Instead of being responsible, a lot of people would rather pass that responsibility off to someone else, or to say they did not know when they are responsible individual. So here, as you can see, if I can take the time to go look up this information, which is available to the entire general public, to get a better understanding of the environment and of the world that I'm living in, if I can do it, then so can you. And so what that encompasses is that says that you are being accountable for yourself, for the way you think and your actions. Also, you are being a responsible individual. And so this also is saying about you is that you're acknowledging the fact that there are things that are out there that you don't understand, and you may need to understand it because you are living in a world and environment that it is prevalent in. So you need to get a better understanding of it. And even better, all the information that you would ever need is available freely to everyone that who may take the time out to go search and read it. And so that is a very good thing. All right, moving into the next paragraph. Understanding these psychological factors doesn't excuse gatekeeping behavior, but it does help us approach the issue with more empathy and insight. It's a reminder that gatekeepers are human, too often acting out of their own fears and insecurities. And so that is a really good point that was just made because so as you are a human being, you have to understand that you are dealing with other human beings too, and everything you have to understand, it's better to get an insight into what is happening, into why it's happening, so you can make better informed decision. And oftentimes a lot of individuals will go along with the norm just because it's what is accepted or what everyone else is doing, instead of taking the time out to really think organically for themselves if it's actually right, or if it's something that they should be doing or going along with. And so I'll just read that again before I move into the other subtopic. For the reason for reading this information, going it over, is to highlight the provided information that is available for us to get a better understanding. So, understanding these psychological factors doesn't excuse gatekeeping behavior, but it does help us approach the issue with more empathy and insight. It's a reminder that gatekeepers are human too, often acting out of their own fears and insecurities. So it's good to get an understanding of your environment and the world that you are in. All right, moving on to the next subtopic here. This is the ripple effects of gatekeeping. The consequences of gatekeeping behavior extends far beyond hurt feelings or momentary discomfort. Like ripples in a pond, the effects of gatekeeping can spread outward, impacting individuals, community, and entire industries. So the ripple effect, just to give you a visual, if you uh, drop like drops of water into more water, you will see it'll have like an ongoing effect or an after effect. That is what it's referring to as the ripple effects. How are you doing? Thanks for joining me. I am currently in the middle of going through this information. For all the information that's been provided, it's there's a link in the video description if it's something that you would like to look into for yourself. Yes, welcome once again. I remember speaking to you earlier. This is a different kind of video and live. I am particularly reading through important information that is available to the general public, but it's something that I like to do on my videos in highlighting important information for all of us as individuals. The time here is currently 9:17 p.m. All right. Before I get too distracted, let me continue reading. The Where was I? Okay, one of the most significant consequences is reduced diversity and inclusivity. When gatekeeping behavior goes unchecked, it creates homogeneous environments where everyone looks, thinks, and acts alike. And so that's one of the things that you'll often see, whether it's in your workplace or in your school or just out in the general public. You'll often see this, and you're wondering if there is no actual unique individuals, because everyone tend to do and say the same thing, and it may be the norm, but for for those that actually stop to have or think just a little bit uniquely or authentically or organically, you will see the obviosity of this is not a normal or a good thing, because everyone is just doing and saying the same thing. So we'll reread that entire paragraph just to get a more in-depth understanding as to what has been read or said or being presented here. So one of the most significant consequences is to reduce diversity and inclusivity. When gatekeeping behavior goes unchecked, it creates homogeneous environments where everyone looks, thinks, and acts alike. Like in those, you'll see this more often than not in like cartoons and animes, or any animated videos that's on television. You'll often see this where you're wondering, why is everyone looking and acting the same and even thinking the same and doing the same thing. It's it looks normal, but it's not something that should be normal. It may be accepted, but then when you come to the end of it, so it's also one of the things that lead a lot of people to being to to having or being unhappy, because after going along with the normal, with what everyone else is doing, after a while, all the hype of it just random it just goes away, and then you start to understand that this is not something that you actually like doing, especially if you have some kind of a core values beyond the popularity and the trends. After a while, you're no longer gonna find the excitement in going along with what everyone else is doing, especially when you start to think organically for yourself. So for some time, it was a good thing for every individual human being to be unique. This was a thing, but oftentimes, as the information here discussed, everyone is now looking alike, they're thinking alike, and they're acting alike, and you're wondering if no if no one really stops to think, what is it that they are doing on a day-to-day basis. And I'll even read this once again, because this is good information to highlight. One of the most significant consequences of reduced diversity and exclusivity, when gatekeeping behavior goes unchecked, it creates homogeneous environments where everyone looks, thinks, and acts alike. This lack of diversity not only feels stifling, but also robs us of the richness and innovation that comes from diverse perspective. I mean, of course it is. There's no two or more than two individuals that should always be doing and saying the same thing without any uniqueness. And so, as an individual human being, it's important for you to stop and think beyond the popularity, the trends, and the norm, because what it eventually comes down to is that, or what tends to happen to a lot of people after all the excitement and the trend and the popularity, after a while, it that that excitement, it starts to not excite you anymore, and it's not as appealing anymore, especially if you have or starting to develop some kind of a core values, or you'll find that it no longer aligns with what you desire. And so this is really good information here. Now let's move on to the next paragraph. Once again, all this good information is linked in the video description for you to reference too. All right. Speaking of innovation, gatekeeping behavior is a creativity killer when the people feel they need to conform to rigid standards or fear being judged for their ideas. They're less likely to think outside the box. This stifling of creativity can have far reaching consequences, from stunted personal growth to reduced innovation in businesses and industries. So, this we often see this from coming up in schools, and you aren't really encouraged uh, to have innovative or creative ideas. The idea for you is to accept what's been presented to you. You're not supposed to question it, even if it doesn't make you happy or it doesn't align with the right thing. The idea is to mold you into a what it wants to mold you into. This is very good information here. So we often see these can reference this to like cartoons, animations, or some kind of a movie, or even robots, where everything is programmed to do the same thing. This is this is directly relating to that, and I'll even read the entire thing once again. One of the most significant consequences is reduced diversity and inclusivity. When a gatekeeping behavior, nope, that's I was reading back in the other one. Speaking of innovation, a gatekeeping behavior is a creativity killer when people feel they need to conform to rigid standards or fear being judged for their ideas. They're less likely to think outside the box. This stifling of creativity can have far reaching consequences, from stunted personal growth to reduced innovation in businesses and industries. All right, the impact of gatekeeping on mental health shouldn't be underestimated. Being constantly judged, excluded, or made to feel not good enough can take a severe toll on one's self esteem and overall well being. It can lead to anxiety, depression, and a sense of isolation that can be hard to shake off. Perhaps most insidiously, let me take my time to say that. Perhaps most insidiously, gatekeeping behavior perpetuates systematic inequalities. That is a perfect statement for that. This, these are some great information being put, words being put into paragraphs and sentences. Never felt so good reading, huh? All right, let's continue. Perhaps most insidiously, gatekeeping behavior perpetuates systematic inequalities. By maintaining barriers to entry and excluding certain groups, gatekeeping reinforces existing power structures and prevents marginalized communities from accessing opportunities and resources. And what tends to happen is that most of most people are individuals when they work to get into a certain position and they don't want to do the right thing or try to help someone else help, they'll try to gatekeep so as to keep other people out, where when you think about it, there is no lack of resources or of anything. So it becomes rather unfruitful. May not be right away, but it is a thing that grows from the inside. Once you start developing some kind of a core values, you will later see that it no longer makes you happy or helps you in the longer run. All right, moving on to the next subtopic, recognizing the gatekeeper within. Here's a truth bomb for you. Well, we've all been gatekeepers at some point. Yep, even you and me. The first step in addressing gatekeeping behavior is recognizing it in ourselves and others. It's not always easy, as gatekeeping can be subtle and often masquerades as expertise or high standards. Just referencing this this is very good because it follows up as you are reading along. I just I just now just mentioned that, especially of a person that works to get into a certain position. When you get into that position, there may be certain standards and criteria that you're being asked to uphold. And even though it might not align with your core values, if you have them, or the things that you think are right, even if it doesn't align with it, but because of the fact that you may want to keep that position or a certain amount of pay or the privileges, you may become a gatekeeper in kind of a manner of gatekeeper because you may want to keep that position, which in the long run doesn't help much. All right. So we have some common phrases associated with gatekeeping. We'll just go ahead and read those along. Those are included here. Why not read them? All right. Oh, these are some good ones that are included as gatekeeping. I think before I get into that, I'm gonna go ahead and just drink a little bit of water and play just a little bit of music here, just a little bit, and then I will get back into reading the rest of it. The excitement of reading, taking the time out to learn some sort of a new information. One of the thing is, whenever it comes to learning something new or trying to learn something apart from what you know or what you've not been exposed to or what you understand in, it can be challenging. So it is always a good thing to at least take the time out to do some reading every now and again. It better helps yourself. It's always better to sit down and be shown something, like watching TV or doing something that's easy. It doesn't take much effort in that sort of a manner. Every now and again, you want to keep the activity going on in your brain so you can properly think. A brief intermission is due. Get some water in before I continue reading the rest of these phrases that are associated with gatekeeping. These are also like gaslighting, or these phrases, as I'm gonna read them right after the music is finished, can be associated with a lot of these things, and you hear them. I'm pretty sure a lot of us we've heard these phrases. And so what this information does, it gives you a better understanding of the kind of environment that you're existing and living in. So it's good to be able to read these things so you get a better understanding. Now I will continue in just a minute right after this music. This is a good topic, and I think this is a topic that have a lot of information that we have here on the internet. So I think there may be lots of different parts to this. Has this is part two. And so far, we've gone over a good amount of information, good information. And I made sure that I provided the link in the video. So for those that are watching and you are interested in looking into the information that's been provided, you can. All right, now getting into the phrases. These are just a few phrases that are associated with gatekeeping. Here's the first one. You are not a real fan unless, end quote. So, quote, end quote, you are not a real fan unless. We've heard this, we've seen it, especially in our, oftentimes in our workplaces, in our schools, when other individuals or groups want to has now it is termed as gaslighting you or trying to get you to do something. They'll say things like this. You know, you are not a real fan unless you. There's a lot more that you can add to that, but that is first phrase. Here's the second one. Back in my day, we did it the right way. What is that can be pertaining to anything. So that is the second one. Here is the next one. You wouldn't understand. It's too complex for beginners. That is another phrase. And here is the next one. The last one that's been presented. We've always done it this way. We've seen this a lot, and that can apply to your everyday life, especially when you go into a new workplace or some kind of an environment. You'll hear these phrases or sentences being thrown out, whether they're doing the right thing or not. But this is related to that gatekeeping in a manner of speaking. And so, as an individual, it is important for you to be acknowledgeable, where you understand that whether this being said or not, it might not necessarily mean that it's something that you should or should not do. It's always come back to the individual or you as the individual to think organically for yourself so you can make the proper and right decision. A lot of this also leads into peer pressure, which many of individuals go along with because they don't really understand themselves. So they may fall along that line. All right. These phrases might seem harmless on the surface, but they often serve to create artificial barriers and exclude others. Recognizing subtle forms of exclusion requires keen observation and self awareness. And I'm glad that they include that in this reading because you need you need to be able to make the decision for yourself in proper decision as this as the sentence read. Recognizing subtle forms of exclusion requires keen observation and self-awareness. So if you're a person that tend to just go along with the popularity, you go along with the trend, a lot of this stuff you may miss out on, or you may fall into the negative side of it, because if you don't have a sense of self to be able to think properly for yourself, to be able to make the proper decision, then you'll somewhere along the line find yourself just doing what everyone else is doing. and you may find yourself not being happy with what's happening at that point. All right, let's continue. It could be as simple as always sitting in the same group at lunch and never inviting others, or consistently interrupting or talking over certain colleagues in meetings. Self reflection is crucial in identifying our own gatekeeping tendencies, and I'm glad that they are touching on things like this because, as I've always said, and I will always keep going back to, is the self reflection and having to always being accountable and being responsible. Because that's where it starts first as an individual. You need to be accountable, you need to be responsible, and you need to acknowledge the fact that you are the one making the decisions. So it is great that they are presenting this kind of information here. Is quite lovely and refreshing to see. Self reflection is crucial in identifying our own gatekeeping tendencies. Ask yourself, have I ever threatened my newcomers in my field? Do I judge others based on arbitrary criteria? And sometimes these arbitrary criteria may not be that of your own, but it may be of a school or some kind of a group or organization that you find yourself in. These arbitrary criteria might be something that's been imposed upon you, or something that you accept unknowingly, or you may even accept it knowingly. But then this is what it turns out to be, and it's good to have an understanding of what is it of the end result. All right. Am I open to new ideas and perspective, or do I cling to the way things have always been done? All right. Let's move on to the rest of the reading here. As a side note that is presented here, feedback from others can be invaluable in recognizing our blind spots. Create an environment where people feel comfortable pointing out exclusionary behavior, and when someone does give you feedback, practice active listening. It might be uncomfortable, but it's an opportunity for growth. So that is very important to point out right there, because it always comes back to you as the individual and what is it that you want. And here, when this paragraph refers back to getting feedback from groups or individuals, that is an important one. But first, it starts at self. If you can do that for yourself, then you need to have honest feedback from groups or people that can give you honest feedback. And when you are given that honest feedback, you need to be able to practice active listening rather than just turning away from it, especially if it's something that you're not used to. It may be uncomfortable, but it will also spring forth growth in the direction in which you are trying to go. So this is a very good paragraph here, and I like the fact that they are pointing out these crucial things that we all should know and practice. All right, moving into the next paragraph, breaking down the gates. Now that we've identified gatekeeping behavior, how do we go about dismantling it? Here are some strategies for creating more inclusive, welcoming environments. So I like the way the information is presented here on this website, because it gives you everything from the base of the the entire subject, what it's talking about, what it is, up even into examples of phrases and how it is used or implemented in our daily life and environment. To now, it goes into the solutions of it. So this is good information that's been provided here. And so I like that aspect of this website. All right. And now we are getting into creating more inclusive and welcoming environments. Here is the first one: promote inclusivity and diversity. That is the first subtopic. Actively seek out and value diverse perspective, create opportunities for underrepresented voices to be heard. Remember, diversity isn't just about demographic, it's about diversity of thought and experience. That is a good thing to understand, especially if you've been groomed in a certain way. It's important for you to understand that there are different ideas and perspective out there, and the way you think and live might be limited. So it's always good to especially seek out to learn and understand different perspective and ways of thinking or living. I like this website. Good information here. Once again, the link to the information that's been provided and presented here is located in the video description. You can find it there. All right, moving on to number 2: challenge gatekeeping attitudes. So this is referencing back to the individual person. These are solutions of what you can do to prevent yourself from having gatekeeping attitudes. Okay, so when you encounter gatekeeping behavior, call it out respectfully, of course. This could be as simple as saying, hey, that comment might make some people feel excluded. Could we rephrase that? These are very simple little ways of going about it. All right, Nate. Moving on to the next one: cultivate empathy and understand. Try to put yourself in other shoes. Remember that everyone was a beginner once. Instead of judging, offer support and encouragement. Now that is very important to understand, because none of us are just suddenly have uh, all the understanding, all the information, or the experience. Everyone was once a beginner at something, so it's always good to be able to understand whenever it comes to things like this. All right, moving on to the next one: creatives create supportive and welcoming environments. Foster a culture where questions are encouraged, mistakes are seen as learning opportunities, and everyone's contribution is valued. That's important to get different perspective before you come to a concrete decision. All right, moving on to the next one. Implement policies to prevent gatekeeping in professional settings. Establish clear guidelines that promotes inclusivity and discourage exclusionary behaviors. This could include mentorship programs, which are very good, diversity training, also very good, or inclusive hiring practices. So that would be referring to you if you are in the position of management or some kind of a business owner. Then you need to be able to be open to mentorship or diversity training, or even inclusive hiring practices. All right, let's move on to the next paragraph. Breaking down gates isn't always easy. It requires consistent effort and a willingness to challenge our own biases and behaviors. So, of course, we've all been grown, or uh, we've all been taught a certain way of thinking or way of living. So, whenever it comes to better or new information being provided, it's always challenging, and that's one thing that, if you're interested in growth, especially when it's new or unfamiliar information, you have to understand that it's gonna be uncomfortable and it's gonna be challenging. So you have to always approach uh, these new perspective with the understanding that it might not be something that you're used to or you understand right away, but you need to uh, take it step by step until you get clarity on the information that you are now being exposed to. All right. Now we are moving on to the key to unlocking potential. As we wrap up our deep dive into gatekeeping behavior, let's recap some key points. All right, this is great. So, gatekeeping behavior is pervasive and can manifest in various forms across different contexts. It often It's often driven by psychological factors like fear, insecurity, and the need for control. The consequences of gatekeeping are far reaching, impacting diversity, creativity, mental health, and societal equality. Recognizing gatekeeping behavior in ourselves and others is crucial for addressing the issue. And this is obviously just a recap. So if you have missed out on the deep dive on the information in which I went in on earlier, uh, you can we you can scroll back to the previous timeline where I was discussing that information. All right, recognize gatekeeping behavior in ourselves and others is crucial for addressing the issue. Strategies for overcoming gatekeeping include promoting inclusivity, challenging exclusionary attitudes, and creating supportive environments. Addressing gatekeeping behavior isn't just about being nice or politically correct. It's about unlocking the full potential of our communities, workplace, and society as a whole. So there's one thing that I always say is that if every individual person practice self accountability, self responsibility, self introspection, and to self evaluate on a regular basis, eventually, if everyone do that, it will become a collective, which will result in your environment, your communities, and even the world being a better or a more acceptable place for you. So this is representing that really well. Good information being provided. All right, let's continue. When we break down artificial barriers and welcome diverse perspective, we create spaces where innovation flourishes, creativity thrives, and everyone has the opportunity to grow and contribute. So if you find yourself in an environment or wherever it is, and there are good people especially, being excluded because of gatekeeping, then you need to ask yourself what is it that you are promoting or upholding, because everyone once had to work to get somewhere. And we have been given the understanding here that a lot of people, once they have gotten certain status or a certain role, they tend to want to go with what they have been told because they don't want to lose, whether it's the money or position. But once you have some kind of a core values or thinking about things that are right, then you will um, come to eventually come to that decision where you really reconsider what is it that you're actually doing. All right, this is basically the recapping of the information that we went through tonight. That basically finishes up at least the initial point of the reading So there is the last paragraph here that says, remember, every time you choose inclusivity over exclusion, every time you welcome a newcomer instead of judging them, you're not just fighting against gatekeeping, you're building a more vibrant, diverse, and dynamic world for all of us. And that, my friends, is a world worth striving for. So that is good information that was provided on this year website. The link, once again, is in the description. For every video that I do based on highlighting different information or new information, sometimes this can be challenging to a lot of people, especially if it's not what you're used to. But it's good to have new information because we're not always taught or groomed in the right and correct way. And what the general public or the norm or the trend or what's popular might not always be what's going to make you happy ultimately. So you always have to challenge yourself in that manner. Try to seek different perspective and better way of thinking. Other people or different groups or whoever or whatever it is may lead you in the wrong direction. So you always have to be accountable and be responsible as an individual human being rather than leaving that up to anyone or anything else. So it is good to go over all these information. I'm gonna go ahead and get into just some more music. We're gonna go just a few more minutes before we closed out. This was part 2. This is a good topic that I will be covering. There's obviously a lot of information, a lot of depth that is provided on this sort of perspective, and I will get into those on other episodes. Good information, whether you're watching this live or on replay. Leave your comment, let me know what you think. If you missed out on any information, scroll back through the video and just go over it. Let me know what you think. Like the video. Once again, much appreciation for those that watch this kind of a content whenever it's come to the edification of oneself. It's never an easy thing, especially when you've been taught or you've been groomed a certain way. It's never easy to try to find a new perspective or new way of thinking or going about things. Whenever it comes to new information, being open or exposed to it, it's not always a comfortable thing. But if that's something that you have been practicing or trying to do, kudos to you for even doing that. And you'll be one out of the many people that taking the time out to challenge yourself, especially when it comes to new information. Not everyone wants to challenge himself, whether it's to think about something new or to get a different perspective. So that is a good thing. All right, once again, thanks everyone for joining me, for leaving your comments, liking the video, and I will leave you guys with this above. As I've always said, is that the journey to self is not an easy one, but it's a rewarding one. Just remember again, you have to challenge yourself in order to get to new aspects of your own life. We've all been groomed to think a certain way, to live a certain way, and it's always a challenging and uncomfortable thing, especially when it comes to new information that you're not used to or a new perspective. You always have to challenge yourself. So, thank you all for joining me once again. Leave your comments in the video. Below. Check for the information that's available on this video. Check in the video description to find all that information, the website that you can go to, or if you need some kind of a reference point, leave your message, leave your comment, like the video, go to my community section as always. Leave all of your comments and information there, and I will get back to you. Until next time, take care. I'll see you in the next video.